what's up, guys? Welcome back to Rapid Ryan Gameplays. And today I'll be discussing the 1-year anniversary special of The Last of Us Part 2. So as we all know that this game has won multiple Game of the Year awards for 2020. It was released at the middle of the pandemic last year at June 2020 and released worldwide a week after at June 27, 2020. So the sales for this initial sales reached 3 million in just 45 days and 8 million by the start of fall of 2020. So this is really a great game, and as of March 2021, it's been grossed that this game by Naughty Dog and Sony Entertainment Interactive have already reached 12 million copies sold. So the Metacritic for this game is 93%, and it has a very high rating by the critics. I don't know if the critics are paid. There's been a controversy that Sony has influenced the critics on this game. But based on the Google votes for this game, we have 65% of the people who voted. There are around 80,000 votes. 65% of those who voted give this game a thumbs up. So it's almost half from the fan base and the people who play this game. So I'm not going to go deep dive into what others' opinion regarding this game. This short, quick podcast is regarding my own opinion of the game. So I happen to know that some of my followers and viewers in this vlog in YouTube is 80% male and 20% female. And there's a lot of young viewers out there listening to me. So if you're in the age range of 17 to 25 years old, hello to you guys. I don't know if you have the ability to buy your own game, because The Last of Us Part 2, when it was released, it was around $60. For now, I'm seeing the sale version of this game is just $34, and sometimes it goes down to $25. So if you have that amount and you have the PS4 or the PS5, this is just an exclusive to the PlayStation. And if you want to try this game, now is the best time to buy it. So let's start with my initial thoughts and reviews. So the critics love this game because it's a different style of storytelling. It's never been done before, where cinematics and gameplays weave into each other during the course of the gameplay. If you have any ideas about the way that Quentin Tarantino showed his films. So Quentin Tarantino is one of the top Hollywood filmmakers. He just made around a dozen films, but all of these films are blockbuster, but they are also very brutal, just like this game. So if you're below 19, you're gonna be having a hard time accepting the brutality in this game, and some female players have shown away with this game because they feel that it's too brutal. The brutality is really way up high in this game. You can see some limbs taken off, people faces being beaten off. Just the brutality, guys. So this is not for the kids. This is for the teens and for the older audiences. So I still have not just a fan base, but a following here in YouTube. We got a lot of you in the 45 and below age range. So that's one of my highest demographics. So I know a lot of you guys played The Last of Us, because each time I brought in a Last of Us Part 2 content, you gave a like and you subscribe. So why are the fan base half on voting for liking this game, unlike the critics? And they even claim that the critics are being paid off by Sony just because of the high praise that they give. Imagine a 93% in Metacritic. So almost perfect. 10 out of 10 on most game critic outfits from out there? And why do people just vote around 60% to 65% like this, and some hate this? Some even did not finish the game at all. So I'll give you a context. So spoiler warning, if you haven't finished or haven't played the game yet, I'm going to be spoiling a lot in this small mini podcast that I'm going to do now. So The Last of Us Part 1 showed us the story, a rare story of a different type of a zombie apocalypse. So the apocalypse in this world is called the fungus infection that puts people into like this blind zombie-like creature, and they're attacking all the live humans, all the live animals. They have this thirst for biting, eating, and everything. So, and the thing is that these zombie-like creatures, we'll just call them zombies for now, is they're so fast. They can run, they can think. It's just like in real world, there's a fungus that infects the ants colony, where the fungus control the ants to invade the entire colony, which they would grow spores. You know, those tiny particles of pollinated spores that goes inside the other ants, and the entire colony will be overtaken by the fungus. So that's its survival. So that's what's happening here in the Last of Us universe, where the fungus have infected humanity, and everyone is being reinfected, not just by the bites, but the spores that are flowing in the air at tight spaces. Like let's say in a building, there were a few infected. Sometimes they hibernate on the side, and then they blew up into spores, and unknowingly some people would come in and they will get infected as well. So in this world, the military have taken over. They've established some cities, walled cities, which they control the food and everyone and the people. Their rights are gone now. It's all military rule. That's why a lot of the survivors have tried to, go against the government. We can't say that they're the government now, because there's no more government system. It's just all the military system. The ones that has the guns, they're the one that has power in this world. So dead smack into the early part of the apocalypse, we have our favorite character of the part 1, Joel. He will be a prominent character as well for the part 2 version of The Last of Us. So Joel, in the early days of the apocalypse, learned to survive, but along the way, he lost his 12-year-old daughter. So I think 12 or 11-year-old. Yeah, he has this daughter, Sarah. So with him was his brother. So his brother, who lives just a few miles away from his home, rescued Joel and Sarah, and along the way, a military guy accidentally killed Sarah on the early days of the apocalypse. So 20 years later, after the death of Sarah, we have the game started. The game, The Last of Us Part 1. Joel was already been established as a hardened criminal, living day to day, and living as a smuggler of illegal things inside a FEDRA. So FEDRA is the federal, I forgot, the response team or something. It's just the military ruling Boston, where Joel thrives. So we never get to see Tommy. So the story revolves around these parts until they have an adventure with Tess. And Tess is his partner in crime, or a little bit of a love interest for Joel. So imagine 20 years has passed. We'll just assume Joel is around in his 30s when he has Sarah. So Sarah is around 12 years old. So this is just all estimated, as there's no direct age reference in the game. It's just the visual part. You can see how Joel aged on the game by looking at his face and looking at the way he acts. So early on the apocalypse, Joel probably would be in his early 30s or mid 30s. Then after 20 years, he's probably in his mid 50s. So, or some say that's 45 to 50, but that's too young for me. If Sarah is around 9 years old, that would work. But I think Sarah is almost a teen, guys. So let me know down the comment regarding this stuff that I'm shelling out. If I'm wrong, just correct me. I'm happy to discuss that with you. So going back, Joel met this little girl named Ellie, which his former affiliation, the Fireflies, the one that attacks the government, the military, no more government, remember? They have this armed struggle with the military because they don't want the rules where the military just killed off people that having high temperatures or symptoms of the pandemic that's still ongoing. They were not able to control it. What they have controlled is the people, but not the pandemic itself. So he was introduced in a circumstance with Ellie, as this girl was immune. So Ellie was bitten off by one of the zombies in her right arm, but she didn't turn. Usually when you get bitten off in the Last of Us universe, you will just have a few hours or half a day to live before you turn. So that's kind of weird when they discovered that Ellie did not turn. So the Fireflies, with the hopes of overthrowing the military, tried to get Ellie across halfway the states, because they're in Boston. They are from the east. They're going to the west to have the laboratory take a look at Ellie and pull and extract a cure for humanity to survive and to bring things back in order. So Joel was able to help Ellie early on. They were able to escape the part of the city, go across. They lost Tess along the way, and that adds up to Joel's emotional struggle, and being a hardened criminal, he became a more hardened rock. So if he was a rock before, he became a metal, I think. Losing Tess, he lost all hopes of survival. He's just living day to day, hour by hour at this point. But the problem is, people are trying to kill Joel and Ellie, as they have learned that Ellie is part of the Fireflies experimentation. So they've been hunted down, and that's where the part 1 adventure begins. And it ends when Ellie was brought to the Fireflies laboratory. When they were about to do the experiment on her, it was shown in the game that Ellie will not survive the procedure. They're gonna open up her brain because her brain showed some exposure, some infection from the fungus, but she did not turn. So they have to extract some, I don't know, guys, but some of the players of The Last of Us Part 1 really thought that the Fireflies does not have the capability to create the cure or extract a vaccine out from Ellie. So I think Joel decided, just for the story's sake, let's say that they're going to be successful in that, because that's the way the story is inclining. That's going to happen. Joel decided that he's not going to let Ellie die just that. So what he did in the next part, before the climax of The Last of Us Part 1, is he killed off everyone in that facility, including the doctors, the nurses, the guards, and then escaped. So when Ellie woke up from the induced coma before her surgery, Joel just told an outright lie that her immunity means nothing. They can't extract a cure, and then there are a lot of people like her that are immune, but they can't extract a cure. So they made their way to find Tommy, which they find the half of the early part of the game for part 1. And Tommy helped them reach their Firefly's destination. So we end the part 1 of The Last of Us with a cliffhanger telling Joel telling a lie to Ellie, and Ellie accepting that lie. So 7 years from 2013, when the first game was released, we got ourselves part 2. So part 2, the story continues after 5 to 8 years, just around the time limit, where Ellie and Joel has been living with Tommy in Jackson, a small town on top of Utah, I think, in the mountains, or maybe in the Colorado. I haven't really looked into the specifics of the location, but they're found in a valley between two mountain ranges. It's cold there. It's always winter, but it's a thriving small town. They have around, at start, when Tommy said they have 20 families strong. Now, after almost a decade later, I think they're going for 100 families strong. The city is wide, big, and they have all the resources they need. They grow their own food. They have animals. They have shelter. They have the walled city. They always scavenge for guns outside, and the only way to protect themselves is they send out parties and kill off the infected around the area. So as we can see, Joel has become older at this point after a few time jumps, and Ellie is no longer a teenager, probably in her early 20s, probably 21 or 20 after this time, because she was 12 at the Last of Us Part 1. There was a banter between Ellie and Joel, with them talking, and Joel asking, "What are you, 12?" And then Ellie said, "Yeah, I'm just 12 years old." So after a few, you can probably see that, because there was a scene early on where Joel sings to Ellie as the song of future days. It shows maybe a couple of years they're settling in Jackson. Ellie has this garage for a house. She lives on Joel's garage. You could predict that it's been a couple of years or more as Joel aged, and Ellie was, I think, 16 or 15 years old. And there were also a few flashbacks of Joel and Ellie traversing the forest and moving along the area outside Jackson, the town, where they have mini adventures, and the scene where Ellie's birthday had happened. So those were the early days of Jackson, and then we crossed to 4 years later to start our gameplay with Ellie for The Last of Us Part 2. You add that up with the initial date that we saw Joel. So I think I can predict that it's around 5 years to 8 years. So with that, Joel has aged within the walled city, and he started to lose that hardened criminal expert, just a hardened criminal guy. Together with Tommy, they become soft. So that's the term that most people use in movies nowadays. So these two guys, the previous killers and torturers of people, because of how the pandemic and the apocalypse have treated them, has now become the good guys in Jackson. They've been friendly to the locals, and probably they haven't even killed another human in the past, let's say, 8 years. They haven't tortured or killed anyone, because this Jackson town is remotely situated inside between the mountains, and it's far from being discovered from the outside world. So it just has its own, it's like a small mini city, not just a town. So with that, I really need to establish the way Joel changed over the years, and as well as Ellie. Ellie is now fully trained. She's very agile. She's quite thin though. She was a little bit looking okay at Part 1, but when she grows up into her early 20s, she looks kind of thin, so she's fast. Ellie is also very well trained by Joel in scavenging and maintaining the area from the infected. So that's the established early on part of The Last of Us Part 2. So you need to know that, because some people just forget that part, because when we do come to the plot point where things go downhill from this time around, people will forget that Joel and Ellie lived in a walled city with friendlies and not able to kill another human for the past 8 years. It changes you guys. The way that Joel for the past 20 years was smuggling, killing, torturing, scheming, attacking the military back in Boston, it changes him as well. So why is the change very important? Because along the shadows outside the walled city, we have this Last of Us Part 2 new character being introduced to us. Her name is Abby. So Abby is the daughter of the doctor that Joel killed off at The Last of Us Part 1. The doctor who will pull and extract the cure out of Ellie. So he was killed at the ending of Last of Us Part 1 because Joel rescued Ellie, if you can remember. So with that said, when he was killed, her daughter, who is apparently a teenager at that point, decided to act revenge on the guy that killed all her friends and her father, of course. So she is introduced as this masculine female, where she trained for the past 8 years just to get her hands on revenge for Joel. So she was already, at the start of the game of Last of Us Part 2, she was already outside of Jackson, looking through the city with her ex-boyfriend. I forgot the name of the ex-boyfriend. Well, let's just continue on. I don't have my notes here. I'm just taking out of my mind, just to let you know. So how real is this review coming from my end? So Abby, she was already outside Jackson, looking in, when her ex-boyfriend, she has quite an issue with the ex-boyfriend as well. That he has a new girlfriend, they're pregnant, they're expecting, so they brought him along for the revenge plot. But Abby decided to push through with the attack in Jackson by going to the lodge where they saw there's a light. They're gonna extract information to whoever they will find there. But this boyfriend doesn't want any part of it. They're afraid that this big of a city will be walled, will be secured, will have weapons, and may have hundreds of strong men waiting for them. And there are only just a couple of a dozen of people trying to find this Joel Miller character that killed the doctor in Last of Us Part 1. So when Abby decided to go to the lodge, she was attacked by a frenzy of zombies outside. Just in time when Joel and Tommy was hiding, because there was a horde of infected that migrates during the winter season. At this part, they were able to rescue Abby. So with a strong leap of fate or a coincidence, they were able to meet. And this is where the fan base are divided, guys. They hated that Joel and Tommy say their name, rescued a stranger, and help her out and go to their headquarters where they situated at is another lodge far from the same lodge that Joel and Tommy were staying. They were like super friendly just to meet people from the outside. This is not out of character for Joel and Tommy, they kept on saying. So as you can see, years of being in the walled city, security, food, and living the normal life really changes you. So that's my opinion. That's why I established it early on, saying that Joel and Tommy are no longer those hardened criminals that they were tagged as in The Last of Us Part 1. So they trusted Abby. When Abby was rescued, she brought them to this lodge where she introduced them to the group. And out of nowhere, Abby shotgunned the leg of Joel. So this is one of another plot points telling the fan base, half of the fan base, saying that you don't just shoot anybody with the name Joel. You just met, and the guy who rescued you, assuming that he's really Joel, the one that you're looking for. But story happens in real life. Things happen. Real life is not just a story, a fairy tale, guys. It just happens. So that's what the video game creator Naughty Dog did here. It's just like out of nowhere, things happen in circumstances, and things just happen. So Abby shoot the leg of Joel, tortured him for quite a while, and we got Tommy being knocked down as well. But she did ask Joel his name. He said, "Joel Miller, you get what you're, this is a long time coming." And with Joel being the badass that he is, said that he's expecting this. After all, he killed a ton of humans back then, a ton of people back in his criminal days. He has no idea who's gonna come after him, but he's accepted. He's at peace with life already. So by this time, Joel was probably around 55 to 60 years old already. He's quite old, and he has accepted his fate that if he's not gonna be killed by a zombie, he's gonna be killed by the people he crossed early on in his life, just to survive. So this is the reality that he is in, and he just accepted the fact that this kid, Abby, probably is someone he crosses from before. So what happens next was Ellie, who was supposed to relieve Joel and Tommy at that time, came looking for them, and there was a heavy storm outside. She accidentally stumbled into the lodge. So that's weird. That's really a lot of coincidence that happened at the same half of the day. So that's why most families will tell you that the story is a bit of a stretch. But we'll just play along. Let's just say that this happens. It could happen, right? Coincidence happen in your life and in my life. I've experienced a lot of coincidence as well. So when Ellie was able to make her way to the lodge, she was able to witness the death of Joel. So Naughty Dog and Sony Interactive killed off one of the best father figure character. It's like the face of the PlayStation 4 for the past decade. Joel Miller was killed off in the first hour of The Last of Us Part 2 by a golf club to the head, done by Abby. So that's the premise of this story. So Ellie was a witness. They tried to kill off Ellie too, but Abby's boyfriend and the latest girlfriend, the one that's pregnant, decided not to, because they were just after Joel. They didn't even kill Tommy. They just knocked him out. So they lived him there, and they returned back to, I think, the part of Seattle. That's where they live. And yeah, they say that they have done their revenge, but they forget about Ellie. He really loves Joel, although he lied, and they have this stain in their relationship. That night before Joel was killed, Joel and Ellie were having a conversation that Ellie was about to forgive Joel. She was having thoughts of trying because she loved Joel as her stepfather for now. And of course, Joel loved Ellie that much because they spent the entire apocalypse surviving together, and they have grown some bond, and they've shared the walled city of Jackson. They live basically just the garage and house apart. And when all the emotional pain that he has during the apocalypse, he found happiness with Ellie. So when Ellie started to forgive Joel, the next day he was killed off. So imagine the trauma that Ellie felt on that day, and she vows revenge. So that's the story of The Last of Us. I'm not gonna dwell to the ending. So I'm just gonna tell you that Ellie is on a rampage looking for Abby, and a part of the game where we played as Abby to show us her side of the story, the B side of the story, to justify the cause of her killing off Joel, is what ticks some of the fans off. They don't want to play as Abby. We've never seen her. She was not introduced in part 1. Why are we playing as her? We don't need her. We want Ellie, And Ellie was really antagonized at this game. She was brought up as a savage killer. The Joel Miller that we know really transformed Ellie into this high rage killer, which she kills hundreds of men just to get to Abby. So that's the game of The Last of Us Part 2. That's why the cover of Ellie with blood stain all over her face was shown. And I think Naughty Dog has plans for The Last of Us Part 3 for Abby. Because Abby, and she has this friend, LGBTQ friend from another faction in The Last of Us universe. They were working together for survival. And in the end, they able to survive. So another pain points from the fans was Ellie was not able to kill Abby, so just let her off the hook by the end of the game. A lot of things happened for this game, guys. So with my plot points review, I hope you have the gist of the story. And what I think is this is a great game. The mechanics of the game, everything is well polished. The world building is like the apocalypse. There are a lot of things to look for, like the letters, the letters from the dead people. They have their own story as well. You can collect those. A lot of item collecting, a lot of killing, a lot of shooting, a lot of stealth. This game is really worth it. You're gonna have 2 discs. I'm gonna show the disc opening in the early parts of this review, if you happen to watch this in YouTube. But if you're listening to me as audio, the disc version has the game disc and the data disc. So this game is 100 gigabytes near. After the update, they are around 55 gigabytes early on, but they have a lot of update for the rendering of the pieces. So this is really a big game because of how big the world. And you're going to play this for 20 to 32 hours on estimate. So some guys finished this in 3 days. Some folks could not finish this for the entire week. I played this. I didn't finish it after a month because I played on and off. But the cinematics, they have 10 to 15 hours of cinematics alone for this game. So what a game. This is like a movie, like a whole series of the entire trilogy of a movie inside just one game. So with the success of The Last of Us Part 2, we also have The Last of Us TV series for HBO coming 2022. They already have hired the cast. We got our young Ellie and our young Joel. They're going to cover The Last of Us Part 1. So that's something to look forward to. And Naughty Dog is going to plan in 3 to 5 years, they're going to release The Last of Us Part 3. The story for that is going to be kept hidden, just like what they do with The Last of Us Part 2. They will never able to spoil it until the year that they're going to release it. So my thoughts. I'm giving The Last of Us Part 2 a score out of 5 as the highest score and 1 as the lowest. I'm giving this a 4.6, guys. Based on the gameplay, based on the story. And yeah, it's one of the highest rating games for me. I'm not a fanboy for Sony, but I'm just gonna tell you my honest opinion. I really like the game. It's great. The story might take you off with extremes, but I can accept it. It's a fiction. I hope you accept it as well on your end. If you like to enjoy games and work on fiction, this is a work of art. Some brutality parts though. If some people don't like seeing limbs being thrown off, shotgun in the face, shotgun in the body, slashes, some people don't like it. So this game might not be for them. I think it's an overkill, but that's just showing half of what the game is, trying to include a very serious reality what could probably be happening when you are in a zombie apocalypse. So with that said, I hope my rating will help you decide to play the game again or brought the game back as it's now on sale. It's probably going to be released soon in the PC, as The Last of Us Part 1 is already released on the PC 2 years ago at 2019. Just watch out for that. So if you don't own a PlayStation, if you don't have PlayStation 5 or PS4, you might have this game in the PC. So let me know by doing some comments and let's discuss furthermore The Last of Us Part 2 discussion. So I hope you enjoyed my podcast regarding this game. With that said, I'll be seeing you soon with more gameplays. Let me know also what do you want games for me to play. I played multiple games, just introductions for now, because I haven't finished one game. But I'll be doing the NBA 2K21 game until they release out the new next gen version. So I might probably have my PS5 by the Christmas season of 2021. I'm holding off until everything stabilizes, because I really love my PS4 now. I still got a lot of game to do, guys. So Last of Us Part 2, what do you think about this game? 1 year after, I really love this game, even though I played it around September last year. I'm finished it off. I'm going to play it for you guys again, so you will have reminisce, an idea, a piece of history, a gaming history piece of wonderful games coming from Sony. Thank you guys. I appreciate you all for sticking around. Peace out. See ya.